Hey guys, if you're new here and you like what I'm putting out, don't forget to hit that big red subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you never miss an upload. So, a while ago, I made a video talking about where to start reading the Power Ranger comics done by Boom Studios. And looking back on that video, I want to say it's probably not that good. So, in this video, I'm going to correct my mistakes and redo that video so you guys can have a better informative video when finding it in the YouTube algorithm. So one of the common questions I get asked a lot is, where do I start reading first? Mighty Morphin Power Rangers because it was released first in 2016, or Go-Go Power Rangers because that came later? Well, it's totally up to you, but if you want to read in chronological order timeline-wise for the Power Ranger comics, I suggest starting with Go-Go Power Rangers because Go-Go Power Rangers sort of takes place after Day of the Dumpster in the TV show timeline. Now that's another question I get when I make the comic related videos. Where do these books fit into the timeline of the TV show? And although a couple of years ago I could have answered that question, it becomes more muddled and more fizzled out with each issue and each volume being released because the comics are their own continuity in the Power Rangers universe. Much like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie with Ivan Ooze, you could say these comics are their own alternate timeline as well. And they kind of are because they take place in modern day, not in 1993, like when the show aired many years ago. So these are your modern day Power Rangers you get today. So let's get right into the video and talk about the reading order for the Power Ranger comics. So let's start with Go-Go Power Rangers, specifically Go-Go Power Rangers issue 1 to 20 and Forever Rangers. So these issues are collected in volumes 1 to 6 of Go-Go Power Rangers, and this is the beginning of the Rangers run as Rangers, leading up to before Tommy joins the team in Green with Evil Part 1. And I want to say, these parts of Go-Go Power Rangers are really good. They have some really interesting story arcs that are collected in each volume. I highly recommend checking them out and giving them a read. Next up on the timeline is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So you want to read MMPR issue 1 to 24, and these issues are collected in MMPR issue 1 to 6. So this is right after Green with Evil where Tommy joins the team, and this is where the comics go in a very different direction and all kinds of story arcs happen in this comic. If you haven't read it, this is where Lord Drakkon was introduced, the Black Dragon, and a bunch of other things that we see later down the line. So this is where you read next in the timeline after reading Go-Go Power Rangers volume 1 to 6. So next up is Shattered Grid. Now the best way to read Shattered Grid is by reading the collection that came out in 2019, and that contains Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 25 to 30, the Free Comic Book Day special, and the Shattered Grid finale. Now, there is a Shattered Grid annual that we got released along with Shattered Grid. I believe that is in one of the Lost Chronicles stories that was released by Boom Studios a couple of years ago. But I believe you can find all of these stories plus the Go-Go Power Rangers Shattered Grid stories in the hardcover of the Shattered Grid release that came out a couple of years ago. Next up is Beyond the Grid. Now, Beyond the Grid is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 31 to 39, and much like Shattered Grid, where Shattered Grid got its own collection, Beyond the Grid got its own collection as well, where it contains all these issues in a single book. So if you don't want to get different trade backs and stuff like that, you can get the entire arc in one big book. So, the next story arc is Necessary Evil. Now, Necessary Evil takes place right after Shattered Grid and leads into the power transfer we saw in Season 2 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So, the best reading order for Necessary Evil is Go-Go Power Rangers issue 21 to 32, and then Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 40 to 50. Now, these issues can be collected in Go-Go Power Rangers volume 7 to 9 and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers volume 11 to 13. Next up is the Unlimited Power arc. Now, you could say that the Unlimited Power story arc is still ongoing as of recording this video. It hasn't necessarily wrapped up yet, so it's still ongoing. So, I'm going to do my best to deliver the best information for reading this story arc. So, people say this arc begins with MMPR issue 51, leading into MMPR issue 55, and then you've got the split of the two different Power Ranger comics released by Boom Studios, Power Rangers and Mighty Morphin. Now this is where the reading order for those comics get really difficult as well. Now how I do it, I read it from Mighty Morphin, then Power Rangers as they're released month to month, but you could probably read these issues in their collected volumes and still follow along just as right. So whatever one suits for you, because these two stories or these two comics are different Ranger teams doing their own thing, but they do eventually interconnect and join together in the comics. So I highly recommend reading Mighty Morphin issue 1 and then reading Power Rangers issue 1 and seeing which one you want to follow in the collected volume form, because these issues or these comics, they do intertwine like I mentioned earlier, but the reading order probably won't bother you too much unless there is a reading order and I'm totally wrong. But go whatever reading order you want to do with these comics. Do you want to follow the Omega Rangers and their journey, or the Mighty Morphin team back on Earth? Because eventually these two story arcs, as I'm predicting, are going to intertwine and join up together. So I don't think there is a correct reading order for these comics, but like I said earlier, read Mighty Morphin issue 1 and then read Power Rangers issue 1 because they kind of connect together. And that's the reading order for the Power Ranger comics done by Boom Studios. Now, I'll probably remake this video in a year or two once the comic has come to an end and Boom Studios isn't doing the comics anymore, so I will have to remake this video once all the storylines are wrapped up in a nice little bow. So, look forward to that video in a couple of years. With that said, I think I'm going to bring this video to a close. Thank you everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and don't forget to turn on notifications. Special thanks to all the members such as Swagger4. If you want to get your name shouted out like Swagger4 over here, become a Zord tier member or higher for special perks on the channel and stuff like that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.